Okay, I'd like you guys to tell everyone your names at first. Tell everyone what you're about.
Hi, my name's Yusei. I'm the co-founder of Sonic Revolution.
I'm Tanner Bates. I'm the public relations manager of Sonic Revolution. I handle the social media and set up interviews like this. I'm sorry it took so long to set up, but here we are at last.
Oh, it's completely fine. This is our first one ourselves. Well, the first thing we wanted to ask you guys is how you came to be a part of the Sonic fandom and how it led to you, wanting to start Sonic Revolution, wanting to start, this movement.
Okay. I've been a Sonic fan since the game came out back in 91. But the thing is that back then, living in a Hispanic family, my parents never believed that I was capable nor interested in playing video games, nor their culture that girls shouldn't play any toys that are designed for boys. So it's been like that. But what kept me more into Sonic was the cartoon. So my interest in Sonic never actually faded away. And the first time I actually owned my very own Sonic game was Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast Pride Collection because I used my birthday money and my graduation money to buy a Sega Dreamcast.
Now, when you said the cartoons, was it Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, SatAM, Underground, or a combination of the three?
Just the two, the SatAM and the Adventure.
Okay.
It's very interesting how Sonic came to the States and Japan, Sega of Japan saw this really fruitful market. One of the things that the American marketing noticed, like Madeline Schroeder, was everyone seemed to want to play Sonic. And it's funny to hear that, from your family and being in the Hispanic community, the mindset. I can still see the same mindset from the 90s. It's not just an aspect of, Hispanic culture, but it was also an aspect of the 90s to where video games were seen as a toy more than they were seen as a distinct form of art, distinct form of electronic media. They were seen still as a toy, especially after the video game crash. What did Nintendo first do? They sold their Nintendo consoles in toy stores, and they brought in the Rob robot, and they brought in this milieu of it being a toy instead of, a piece of hardware. But nevertheless, when Sonic came out, one of the things Sega of America noted was that everyone played it. I mean, from 5-year-olds to 15-year-olds to 50-year-olds, male and female. Sonic had a ubiquity to him. And I think if it wasn't for that competition with Sega, we would still have a kind of view that video games are toy-like. We would think of Nintendo. We would think of family-friendly games like Mario Party, Legend of Zelda. Though it certainly wasn't Doom, Sonic was a little bit more edgy and a little bit more open, especially teenage demographic, because Sonic was a lovable rebel. What about you, Tanner? What about your early formative years and how you got into it?
Let's see. Well, I know I played the first Sonic game when it came out on the Genesis, and then I played the second as well, but then I kind of fell out of the fandom, but what really brought me back into playing the games was actually Sonic Adventure 2, and after that I was actually starting to loyally follow the franchise, and I was buying every single game as it was coming out.
That's really interesting because that kind of mirrors my own story. I mean, for a long time, I fell out of the fandom. Sure, I think it was, with me though, it was Sonic Heroes. Like her, I really loved Sonic Adventure. Sega Dreamcast was a big thing to me. I was a Nintendo kid personally. Did you like any of the cartoons as well? Did you see any of them as a 90s kid?
I
any
remember...
fond memories of SatAM?
My only memory I recall is one time staying in a hotel room and seeing advertisement for Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, but I never watched any cartoons until Sonic X came out, so I was kind of missed that phase, but in recent years I did watch all the cartoons because I bought them on DVD and everything.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing that you get to go back to them. You get to see, you kind of get to live the parts of childhood you didn't get to live, connect to, the bigger Sonic culture. You get to mine something that you just began to mine in your early years.
See, I'm kind of jealous of you guys since you guys were pretty much there from the beginning of the Genesis times where I was born in 94, so my really first experience with Sonic wasn't until Adventure on the Sega Dreamcast. So hearing you guys talking about the early days, it's just, I feel a little behind compared to you guys.
If it's any consolation, I was born in 92, so I hardly remember anything about games other than I could never beat the boss. My parents would have to do that for me to leave the game on for a night because there were no save files. So then we would, on the last level of Sonic 2, we would purposely keep dying and respawning so that we could farm lives in time for the final boss. So go have fun and fight him with 80 lives and everything.
And what about you, ma'am? What do you think? Do you have any fond memories specifically of playing the game or any details? It really fascinates me that, it was seen as a boy toy in your household.
Well, I've always been the odd one in the family. Well, I've been an only child most of my life. Well, I've been more of a tomboy during my childhood years. Every time when my friends have a home gaming system like a NES or Super NES or even a Sega Genesis, I go over to their house and play their games. Like, especially one of my childhood friends in which I used to live in my hometown. He used to have a Sega Genesis at his house. I go over to his place and play as a second player Tails for Sonic 2 along with his brother and sister. So it's the only way that I was able to play any Sonic game was through my friend house Sega Genesis.
Yeah, it was similar to me because I had a Super Nintendo later on. My parents didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't really get into playing the video games till around 5. A lot of my consoles were hand-me-down. When the 64 was being released, I had just got the Super Nintendo. It's kind of weird to me because I got to live the early 90s with a little bit more memory, even though I was born in 91. I got to live the early 90s, in the late past. And I remember actually having the Sega versus Nintendo debate with my cousin. I think I remember him talking about blast processing. And it's like, well, yeah, I really like The Legend of Zelda. I got the controller in my hands, and I had to quietly seethe and not admit to him. It's like, oh yeah, it's a nice game, but not amazing. Not, admit to him that it was amazing. I loved how fast it was. I loved playing Sonic 1. I loved experiencing Sonic 1, and he actually had Sonic 2 at the time as well. And I wanted to play it, but I didn't want to admit that this was really, really good and could compete with Nintendo. Of course, that was just stubborn pride, and I should recant for all of my sins against great Sega. So we know how you started to develop. How you went to people's houses. You got to see the Dreamcast years. You both seem to really have those formative moment with the Dreamcast years. That interrelation with Sonic X and the Sonic Adventure narrative, that's probably something big to you guys. Was it big to you? Because it was big to me. I loved how, I played the game, and then I got to see a bit of Sonic Adventure in a cartoon. That was really cool. Did you have any, moment where things click between the video games and the other media? And it feels that it's just more than a video game.
Always from the beginning thought it was more than just a video game because back then I used to have a huge imagination, and so I pretended the Sonic was real. And me and my friends used to run around pretending to be like Sonic in elementary school. So especially during a PE class, because none of us really like running or doing exercise. So that was the only thing to pass time. And gotta go fast.
I remember a lot of experiences like that when I was really young. I think these all been very formative to my imagination. For better or for worse, there's lots and lots of different qualities and different quantities of Sonic fan art, Sonic literature, and it's very nascent, and it's still a Wild West territory out there. Fan fiction still very much a wild country, but you can see the start and spark of how it really edifies the imaginations of individuals, and he's literally been the muse for a lot of us, which brings us coming together. And that want to come together and share that common spark. You remember the day where you both thought that, I want to bring the fans together. I want to create a Sonic revolution.
Oh, that. Well, that was back in, trying to
2013?
remember. Yes, 2013. That's when Sega decided to do Sonic Boom at another state. For me, I'm pretty much okay for Sega doing their own event. I felt really bad for other people who were looking forward to it and finding out that they're not able to attend because of commitment, budget, and especially the kids. So me and my friend Shane decided to form a small gathering at the Dave & Buster in Orange County. Tanner, do you remember the date it was? Was it in September?
Yes, I believe, like September 13th or something.
Yeah, September. At first, my friend Shane she was more motivated, but at the same time, it was more of a budget. Like, are we able to do this, or how are we going to do it? How many people were willing to just for one day do a social gathering event? Well, we all took the plunge and we started with a good success.
Yeah. What do you think was the biggest apprehension you had? What was your biggest worry, your biggest concern that you thought would be a roadblock?
It would be The attendance, yeah.
Yeah.
That was our biggest concern because like we booked a room for 25 people and we were afraid that none of them were going to show up, but we were quite surprised that up to 20 people actually did show up.
You really get to see that there are other people that have that same story as you do, that same type of love that you do. Tanner, do you want to add anything to this? What was your feeling?
Well, I originally wasn't part of anything, but when I first found out about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally want to attend this because I already had plans to go to the one in St. Louis, but I figured, hey, it couldn't hurt to go down to California for a gathering, see this get off the ground. And well, first off, I tried to ask if I could be the trivia contest host, and the DC and Shane agreed, and so I came down to host that. I'm notorious for having really obscure questions, but
And I hate you for that.
it's been a running gag at all the conventions. Like, when they get to the really hard ones, they all look at me, and I'm just like, well. But, and after that, besides doing that, I also, started promoting it to, anybody who I found out lived in the Southern California area, I would actually suggest that they attend. And that's how I got started with the PRing thing. And from there, it's basically been every year I've had the PR function, but I've also helped out with the trivia contests. Normally the person who hosts it is members Jason Berry, but I usually help him put questions together. So
Yeah, I feel like with you obscure questions, I feel like Mike from our site would probably be the one who probably can get most of them.
Oh, yeah. Mike might be your foil. We call him the archivist of the obscure, and he literally runs on our forum Mobius Obscura, where he finds all these obscure things, the 90s pogs, all sorts of cool stuff. There was a French comic for just a little bit of a run. We found some old strips of Sonic comics in a newspaper. The obscure stuff, actually, I can use a lot of it, that tangential stuff to relate to people who are not necessarily Sonic fans. My dad was a metalhead in the 80s. I'm kind of blessed to have a young father. One of the funny things I tell him, he listened to the song I Am the Eggman from Sonic Adventure 2, and he says, wait, who is that? And I said, that's Paul Stratino, from Quiet Riot. And he's like, oh, he freaks out. He loves it. He loves Sonic music. That little obscure fact helped bridge together. He could like a lot of this music and like a lot of Crush 40 and stuff because he was a metalhead in the 80s. And even just to hear one springboard, that's Paul Shorty. People think that trivia, is trivial, but sometimes it's not. I mean, I think that's kind of the funny oxymoron about trivia is that sometimes it literally helps us, reach out to, like in that example with my dad, reach out to people to understand what we like. Connect some empathy and also appreciate our fans a little bit more. Appreciate, little aspects and detail, the way you would do it. From that, the humble beginnings in the Dave and Buster's. What were your guys' thoughts after that? Were you pumped? Were you apprehensive? Were you thinking, oh, do I really know what I'm getting myself into when it comes to, the logistics of it all? I mean, there's that one moment we fear failure, but we also get scared of success because you're like, oh, holy crap, all these people are just coming around me now. And you sound like you're like the quiet type, Tanner, probably more of an introvert, right?
just about. A lot of people call me the hyena because I usually laugh a lot, but
yeah,
I usually don't talk much unless I'm probed. But once I get going, I can talk a lot.
Yeah, you have to breach that moment of I don't know these people to realizing, well, they like the same thing as me. Realizing that they're part of your circle. When it came to that, I mean, did you have any social apprehensions about bringing all these people in and trying to basically herd cats in the Sonic fandom? Man, I'm just thinking the logistics of it. I mean,
well, for me, it was relatively easy because I was just handling the messaging and everything, whereas Shane and Ladise were handling the organization of the convention itself. I gradually got out of my shell because I met one of my close friends, Bishop, at the first meeting in Dave and Buster's, and ever since we both became staff members, so we often talked to each other, and so whenever I saw him at the event, it was pretty easy for me to mingle with him, and then I would mingle with whoever he was with. It became pretty easy. Once I actually know a few people in the group, it becomes a lot easier for me to interact. It's only when it's when I don't know anybody, that's when it gets a little awkward. It always helps if I talk to someone online first, of course, because then I know who they are. I went to the Sonic 25th anniversary party last year, and I met so many people who I've only talked to online before, which was pretty amazing.
I know. That sounds like one of the deepest and most visceral rewarding parts is actually seeing the people that you really bonded with for years in person. To you, it was probably more of a high on the success than nervous about it because of what your responsibilities were and the connections you got to. What about you, Lisa? I mean, feel a little bit overwhelmed about going from that, that humble start in Dave and Buster's to realizing, oh, this is going to get bigger?
Well, I didn't really think much about it when I saw the people who attended the first event. That got me motivated. That's when I started looking through a couple of possible venues in Orange County, because back then Shane was living in San Diego County and I was living in LA County. And, well, to avoid any kind of conflict, we decided to meet halfway there in Orange County. When we started to make it big, well, my biggest concern was the pricing, the space, and if people were able to go make a commute to Orange County.
Yeah, I can see that the logistical part, it's a unique difficulty. We love socializing with people, meeting people, but behind all of that, there's a lot of infrastructure of trying to find the places and was that hectic for you? Did you adapt fast?
Yeah, I was able to adapt fast because, well, when I first started venue hunting, I was a bit shy at first when it came to talking to the caving manager, the venue rep manager, but little by little, I started to learn how things work within booking a room. So there were a couple of things that I learned along the way, and that actually did help me build up confidence.
If you could tell younger fans or fans that are hoping to do something like you're doing, wanting to meet the people they've talked with online and all that, what would you tell them and give them a lesson you wish you could go back in time and tell yourself? What type of lesson would you give them vicariously?
Be honest, I'm not really sure. Usually I don't think much. I just go on ahead. But if I were able to go back, tell myself just be confident and never be afraid to ask so many questions, because there are certain things that you want to make sure what you're doing is right, or if there are certain regulations you have to follow, or is there any requirement, you just have to make sure that everything goes legit.
Yeah, you probably tell them to be prepared for red tape.
Mm-hmm, right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you have something to say about this. What would you say if you had a time machine to go talk to yourself about doing this better, or if you fans that wanted to do something similar to you? What would you say? Especially with messaging, because, you're the guy who has to make the message right. I remember you actually on the Foos Forum. I remember talking with Ben about, help this guy along. He's doing something important, actually getting people to meet in person. Did you feel apprehensive, like, for example, go to Foos or you go to Sonic Stadium? Do you feel like you could have messaged yourself a little bit better, or, learned some more techniques, or, you learn from any mistakes, or did you learn any cool observations that you wish you knew prior before getting into it?
I can't really think of anything that I'd change. Basically, what I would do is I would go to all these different community sites, and I'd create a thread for the convention, and I would answer any questions anybody had and talk to them. And I try to hang out a little bit at the site as well, so I didn't basically feel like a sentient spam bot. So I try to comment on a few topics constructively, and that way I would seem like I was trying to be part of the community and not just trying to get people to go to these conventions. But
would you say that, would you warn people about, don't go making demands on each side, or instead of actually get to know them? Would you say that go with that personal approach?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That'll help people be more interested in attending if they know that they can trust you, that you're genuine,
that they don't end up somewhere in Sheboygan with three people in the middle of a heroin deal or something.
Yeah, pretty much. I know that's the toughest obstacle for regular meetups, is that if they don't meet around some event, very few people tend to show up at first because they don't know any of the people, and it can take a while to build up those groups. I know that Ladise was holding meetings in LA for a while, but I remember attendance. What was the most attendance you ever got, Ladise?
5.
Yeah, it can be really hard because the inspiration for trying to do meetups of Sonic fans that aren't in a convention setting stems from Sonic London, because they managed to get meetups of 40 or 50 people at a time. So they basically got a small convention of their own every time they meet up every few months. But yeah, that's it definitely helps to try and connect with people a little bit so that they are more interested in attending. I know that was the best part. At Sonic Revolution, usually I serve as the event's merchandise vendor. And a lot of people know who I am because I'm also the PR person. So a lot of people actually come up and just say hi because they know who I am from all the promotions. So,
yeah, I worked in PR actually for Berea College for a while, and my Spanish teacher said, "Oh, you work for the Departamento de Misinformación." And he would tease me about that all the time. Yeah, but it's like I can personally relate with that, especially as being an admin. You always gotta look out and make sure that I would agree with you about you want that empathy, you want that care, you want to be in the middle of things. I mean, one of the things I personally do is I don't care to actually because we're an art forum. I don't want people to just fall into cliches or fall into tropes, as I'll sometimes debate with it when it comes to critique. And it's like it comes with ideas like, why can't you add something with a little bit deeper meaning into X or Y or Z when it comes to stories? I mean, getting in, that positive critique or, willing to debate a deep topic and saying, why can't that be the subtext of one of your Sonic stories? There's lots of, for example, there's a lot of, political messages in SAT-EM when it comes to, authoritarianism. And the philosophical concept of transhumanism is all over it because, these roboticized people, isn't this better for them? Isn't this progress? There's messages of industrialization and the questioning of that. Making them think deeper and stuff like that, engaging with people. I think that enriches the fandom because you're not just transmitting to them, you're communicating with them. I mean, communication is, it's a process with feedback. And public, when it comes to public relations, we have a tendency to have the fallacy of thinking we're just merely a radio transmitting, but it's all about also not just speaking, but hearing. And I think you got that down right. And I personally, as as a person from the outside, when you talk to us in Foos, I think you did it pretty well. I mean, you got to know us, and you were kind and cordial and very, very tolerant of our shenanigans.
That's it became like a running gag at the Sonic 25th anniversary party. Is I had a lot of people come up to me and say, "Hey, Tanner," and I'm just like, I feel kind of embarrassed because I'm like, who are you?
Oh, hey, person.
Like,
Oh, hey, you, person with a face.
because I don't recognize faces usually. I usually recognize names. Once they told me their name, like, oh, okay, now I know who you are. It's just like, fortunately, I've been blessed with a pretty good memory in that regard. But it was always kind of fun, is that all these people wanted to meet with me and talk with me, but like a lot of them I didn't recognize by face. They had to tell me who they were first, which was always a little embarrassing. But it does speak how much the personality that goes with the promotion really changes how successful it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean it's one of the fun parts because you get to build those relationships with people, and then you get to see them take up root eventually when they get to meet you. And I think you both can't give yourself too hard a time when it comes to Sonic London. Why? Because it's 57 million people on a tiny island compared to the United States.
All
Yeah.
concentrated.
Well,
Yeah.
I was planning. Well, when after I did the last Sonic meetup, I was planning to do another one in like for the Cherry Blossom Festival, but then I got sick and I couldn't do it for a while. And I've been telling myself I should do another Sonic meetup for next year, and then a year after that, I'm like, maybe next time, like very soon, and like now, I'm like, I really want to do a Sonic meetup, but when?
There's a lot of
I've been so busy lately, so.
There's a lot of us in Kentucky it's funny on our forum. I was just laughing the other day. I was like, okay, so many of us are from Kentucky. We have Mocat who's from Kentucky. We have Alex from Kentucky. Mike is now in Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky. It's like, where did all these people? It's like, when did Sonic, the Sonic plague strike Kentucky? I mean, we're all Sonic fans. It's like, we're all Sonic fans here. It's like, what matter in stroke of fate is this that we're so close to each other? I guess we're having the opposite problem than you guys. You're having to go all across the country to find people, but we're getting the opposite problem with concentration. It's like, ultimately, what would you say are any other obstacles, coming conflicts that you had that, you had to overcome and you were glad to overcome? Was it just the logistics or is it coming up with new things and fun things for them to do. Can you tell us what sort of things evolved and developed over time? Ideas for for everyone to hang out and do something fun. Was there any times where you said, "Oh, let's do this. This is a new idea. Let's do this" in the middle of the convention, or has it always been kind of a by the formula of even from that day, just doing the trivia, doing the merchandise? Have you guys always had it plotted out, or has anything evolved organically over time as you've done more of these conventions?
Well, the first step that we always do is just pick a venue and the date, and hope for the best that they actually have the date available for us to book the venue. But after we managed to book the venue, the next step was figuring out. I mean, well, not figuring out, and more like the special guests, inviting them, and that's the biggest hurdle there. It's just inviting the guests from the Sonic Boom cast, the voice actors, even the art, the artists from the Archie comic publication.
Oh, cool. It's, you got to tell me about some of your guests. That's one of the things we'll have to do. It's like you got to tell me your personal experiences with them and anything that really shoots off off the tip of the tongue when it's like really good memories about a guest.
To tell you the truth, I'm more into the organizing, more of in charge of the venue and like programming and the floor planning. The one who actually are in charge for the special guests is Shane and Jason and Tanner as well. They're the one that handles the special guests. I do the heavy work.
Oh yeah, you do all the logistics. But
Yeah.
have you ever got to talk to any of them, or have you always
Well,
been had?
Tommy Tellerino?
oh, that. Yeah, I remember him. That was a stroke of luck. Because usually I used to attend the Video Games Live concert
Oh, cool.
for a couple of years. And so when we had our first convention at the Buena Park Holiday Inn, and we didn't have much of a guest, so I'm like, you know what, probably let me try to contact Tommy and see if he's willing to spend a couple of hours at our convention, the Sonic Revolution. And he actually did reply to me. I'm like, oh my God. And like, he actually replied. Like, I was surprised that he actually accepted the invitation. I'm actually really grateful. And he actually handed out a couple of DVDs and CDs from his own concert. Video Games Live Volume 1 and 2. Back then, Volume 3 and 4 didn't came out. And I actually did supported his album and his concert. So he actually brought in a couple of copies of music sheet of Sonic Medley, a complete orchestra score. And like I thought, okay, those are prizes for, I can't remember what it was. I think it was cosplay contest or something like that. And then he gave a copy of each of the orchestra score. I'm like, really? I wasn't expecting that.
I think I remember 2 years ago at PAX East 2015, they were there and they did the Sonic the Hedgehog compilation orchestra piece. Most of it was from Sonic 2, if I remember correctly, but when you said that, I was just like, they did this at PAX East 2 years ago.
I got to thank you for really supporting the arts around Sonic. When it comes to music, we have to make sure these soundtracks carry on beyond the software and the hardware limitations of their time, because these scores and these melodies, they need to develop and they need to go out into the world. And it's great that you corresponded with a man who's taking this music and putting it in a classical orchestra, giving video games such respect. This is art, the high art. This is good art. It's amazing to hear, Sonic played by a full orchestra, and to see it have that respect of being written down on an orchestral score, and to have that in your hand and see it is just amazing.
Kind of like Unleash's soundtrack, really, where most of that was just mostly for orchestra and then Bowling for Soup.
Yes.
That's the one thing I just love about Unleash's soundtrack. Is just it's a full orchestra piece, and then all of a sudden the main theme happens to be from Bowling for Soup. It just seems the most out of left field thing you can do.
I always loved Sonic Colors. That was one of the things I really loved. The violin pieces in that. I mean, I love that melody.
I really hope Jun Noon does Sonic Forces. I know I originally said in the article that it appears not. TSSZ found out that he may or may not be involved. It's still up in the air at this time. More will be released told soon. Apparently, Jun Noon will be in upcoming Sonic Twitch stream, I think next week or the week afterwards.
Well, for right now, well, I only saw his tweet in the morning, a couple of hours ago. It was last night. I can't remember. I'm terrible at remembering some of the stuff. But he actually traveling here in LA in a couple of hours. If it's not here already. So maybe.
Maybe.
What about you, Henry? Any interaction with, special guests that's been really memorable and special?
I stayed behind booth for the most part, but I know Bill Freiberger from the Sonic Boom TV show actually came up to my booth and he asked, he was just like, "You're not selling any Sonic Boom plushes?" Like, pretending like he was surprised. And I'm just like, well, I just said, well, unfortunately, Tomy won't do business with me, so I'm not able to sell their product.
Why do I imagine get that question asked and then you kind of sink into a pile of Sonic plushies and all you can hear is your ashamed and embarrassed eyes?
Like I have every plush under the sun except for the Sonic Boom plushes. It was a pretty glaring omission from my stack, but I do remember the first year it was really awkward. My friend Bishop actually got Aaron Weber to who had showed up as he wasn't a special guest, but he just showed up as a regular attendee, and Aaron Weber actually came over to my booth, talked to me, and I froze up because I was not expecting someone of as high profile as him to just come and talk to me, and they did a joke where he and all my friends all surrounded me because Aaron's like, oh, by the way, Bishop asked me to harass you, so here I am. The most awkward thing, Bishop had actually gone out to lunch with him, but I wasn't, and I had been invited, but I was just like, I'm flattered, but I can't because I have to run my booth, and unfortunately my pricing system is could use a little work, so I needed to be there to manage everything. And
I actually met Aaron at PAX last week. He's actually in person. He's actually a really cool dude in person. And how I met him was just I was standing by the HyperX booth and they had a demo for Mania. I'm looking at the guy right to me and he's wearing a Sonic shirt. I'm like, wait a second, this guy looks familiar. I'm like, and so at my point I'm like, you're Aaron Weber, aren't you? He's like, yep. I'm like, knew it. He's actually a really cool guy. I mean, I mentioned you guys to him, and he kind of lit up a little bit. He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember talking. I remember the Sonic Revolution guys." I mean, he kind of had some high praises for you guys by the sounds of it.
Sounds like someone's saying nice things about you behind your back.
No.
yeah, that's definitely good.
I mentioned Scribes to Aaron. Aaron kind of came off as he really likes the fact that more and more fan groups are starting to spring up now and more trying to get more involved with everything. I kind of see it as more. I think he sees it just things just how he took the Sonic Twitter in the social media pages to I think at one point the Twitter pages only had 100,000 followers. Now it's over 1 million, and it's just I think he's seeing everything around Sonic is just growing within the past couple of years. And I think
Make our own micronation now.
But I
storm Sealand and take Sealand over.
But I think me mentioning Sonic Revolution and Scribes, I think the way it looked from his facial expression was just more and more Sonic fans of more and more groups are coming. Things are happening.
And it's a good thing because one, Sonic has a divergence to him as much as a convergence. We all love Sonic, but a lot of us came to Sonic in multiple different ways. It's so easy to get into a meaningless tiff about Son Amy or Son Sound, or when it comes to SOJ or SOA or SOE. Sega of your Sega.
Or which game is best?
Or which game is best?
Which is obviously Adventure 2. If anyone says wrong, anyone says anything else, they're wrong.
Getting beyond that, because you get past the social insulation of a pixel screen and you get to meet these people in person. You get to see that they're just like you. They're iodine when they see the Sonic plushie just as much as you do. And you get to see, much to your profit, Tanner, much to your profit.
Here comes the money.
In the end of the day, capitalism wins. We may get you one of the Monopoly monocles. Yeah.
Just hiding the Sonic Monopoly version, which they do have.
A copy of the complete works of Milton Friedman and Adam Smith. Yeah. That's what I should do, because I do art. It'd be funny to take a picture of Milton Friedman for you and dress him up as Eggman.
Oh goodness, Teddy Roosevelt has competition.
Some free minds and free markets.
And Evil Ham. Don't forget Evil Ham.
Yes, they were.
I mean, that's the business side of that. Speaking of that, I mean, what's that experience been? Working with that merchandise and being able to sell it to people. I mean, is it been unique? I mean, Was it a struggle to get into it, or is it something you've really taken to?
I'd say it's been pretty fulfilling, actually, just working from home to like just package and send out all these orders every day. It's been fulfilling because I didn't really, it was actually technically the first like paid job I've ever had in my life. So that was pretty fulfilling to me. I'm just like, oh, holy crap, I'm actually making some money. But it was moderately easy to get into. But, the catch is, as with all businesses, you still need so much startup capital. And then the really big problem is not only find suppliers who are willing to do business with you without a physical store, but on top of that, there's also a lot of competition. A lot of big stores are carrying the same item. So for a while there, I was making like practically nothing. But eventually, I had so many sales that I had gained a reputation for service, and from there, I was raising my profit margins more. But back in it originally started as a fluke. I felt like I wasn't doing enough for the Revolution team, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do the day of the event? All I do is I'm just the PR guy, and so I was like, hey, I could probably provide some merchandise. And I looked into it after a thread on the Sonic Stadium where they were discussing Great Eastern's merchandise line, and I decided to get in touch with them, and I started buying a few case quantities of the items, and next thing I knew, I was able to sell them on eBay and Amazon, and from there just kind of grew and grew. But it's overall been pretty fulfilling.
Congratulations, Sarah. Your capitalism skill has gone up one level.
Yes, congratulations. And that's hard and difficult, seeing that you're in California.
I was actually in Nevada when I started, but
Really?
yeah, and I would actually travel the full 5 hours to go to the convention to sell stuff.
That's dedication right there.
Oh yeah, it's after expenses and everything, I would only make probably $200, $300 profit, but it was fun, just going down and being able to mingle with everyone, make a bit of money on top of it. I'm the only Revolution staff member who actually gets paid for the day of. So,
Yeah, it's like you're getting paid to have fun and getting paid to enjoy something in your life.
Oh yeah, that was
fulfilling your
Hey,
passion.
Tanner, if I remember correctly, you had to travel to Compton one time.
Oh boy.
Oh,
it's just like 3 blocks in, not the bad parts, and we get in and we get out. We get in, we get the stuff, and we get out. Oh, that sounds wrong. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, just like selling drugs.
But
hey man,
Yeah, come on, man. This is a family site, man.
I got this rare Sally plushie, man. It's good stuff, man.
But yeah, it was last fall was ridiculous because I actually rented this giant van, and then I put all my merchandise in it. I still had a ton of room, and I'm like, wow, I really didn't need to get this monster. And that quickly became an issue because, as Ladise could tell you, the parking was a nightmare since it was the hotel was right by the airport, and all the parking spaces pretty much were underground, and the van was too big to fit down there. So
Yeah,
I'm sure Ludi's are the ones that probably lock you up, right? You're like, oh no.
we didn't expect the parking would be a pain. So because it was on a Sunday, I'm like, it's Sunday. Who's gonna fly? I mean, who's gonna park in the Holiday Inn? And then all of a sudden, there's no parking. I'm like, okay, where do those people come from? Are they here for E3? Because we did it on a Sunday, the week of E3. So I did not expect people to fly in on a Sunday.
I guess that would be one of the life lessons learned. Don't plan it so close to E3.
Yeah.
At the same time, I can see E3 being a good thing for them.
It did work for us for E3, before E3. But the thing is that we shouldn't have booked the venue at the LAX area. That was a mistake from my part.
Yeah, I remember it was an experiment. We figured if a lot of attendees are flying in, this would help them, encourage them to come, because now, as I recall, it's not that far from the airport, so to be able to... It was an experiment for easy access for people who were flying in, but it was... we paid the price in other ways, clearly, because not only was the venue insanely expensive, but yeah, the parking was a nightmare. I have never seen parking so terrible in my life. So.
A lot of that's trial and error. There's always going to be that one thing. But it's also, the bad surprises. You're going to get a lot of those good surprises, too. I guess that's just part of all of it.
Sega people showing up was a pretty pleasant surprise. I had a feeling that Aaron Weber might drop in because he dropped in unannounced for the first one as well. But then to see Takashi Iizuka and Hoshino both drop in for last year too, I had my jaw dropping. I looked at them and
Really?
felt my jaw dropping because I was not.
Well, what was their reactions like?
They were just walking around checking stuff out, but as always happens whenever Hoshino and Iizuka are on the floor, fans started to crowd around them. But
we're not worthy. Wayne's World.
That reminds me of just a very quick memory of Sonic Boom 2013. At the very end, when they closed the show down, they said everyone was free to roam for about 30 minutes. And I was just mingling with people. Next thing I know, the room goes dead silent, and I see why. I look over, and it's Iizuka and Hoshino just walking across the floor. and like a second later, it's like this horde of people. It's like a bunch of like zombies like surrounding the only human in the crowd. Like they're just like all surrounding him. Like
Once they get on the floor, it's like the invasion of the body snatchers. Just like
They all know you're there.
I mean, if they were walking around and people were talking to them, did you get a chance to talk with any of them, or?
Fortunately, by the time they came around my booth, I was actually in the restroom, so
Aw.
timing. I know they were like checking out the plushes and everything because I've seen photos. I'm like, I could have been there.
If they were there and they seem to enjoy it, I mean, that's actually, to me, that just sounds like a really good sign. That they do enjoy these fan gatherings and all that.
Fruits of your labor, you say. The fruits of your
Yeah.
labor. What's it make you feel like that? They can.
I felt honored. I mean, here's the thing, because like last year, I wasn't really around the area. Well, I was for a bit, but the thing is that last year, I was working behind the scene, more in the live sound, along with the DJ and another volunteer for the live stream. And oh my gosh, the live stream, I mean, everything was fine at the convention, but when it came to live streaming it live for other viewers, I mean, for the viewers who were unable to make it, we had a lot of problems, no, especially the sound, because back then I had a new sound equipment, which is a mixer, an audio mixer, and I did not know, because I bought it new, I did not know there was a defect on the channels, that we were having trouble with the mic, and then the audio was out of sync with the video. And for me, I tried my best I could, but I was able to actually relax a little bit, walk around and meet the people, especially the special guests, and also doing a photo op with Aaron, Isuka, and Hoshino along with Shane. And so if I felt honored that they actually took the time to come visit our convention.
Yeah, I mean, you probably have like all these moments where you have to deal with the parking, and then you have to deal with technology being all discombobulated, and then all of a sudden you realize what you're doing it for, and you realize that even they can't. When the days get hard and you're having to do problems with live streaming and stuff, just remember that all of those people them in the crowd. I mean, you gave them a moment in their lives that's very, very memorable. They're going to carry it with them. It looks well worth it. I mean, you've enriched fans' lives. And, I mean, on behalf of all of them, I deeply thank you. I do want to go back to one thing I noticed. You guys were talking about, one of the things you were talking about, cosplay. Any interest in cosplays? Because, we're all about the art. We were talking about the music. Us free scribes also love to hear about, any form of, 3D design, like any very noteworthy cosplays that you really enjoyed or seen or...
Mostly those who actually took their own time and dedication in building, what was it, Metal Sonic?
Oh,
That must have been a sight to see.
There's another one, was it the...
Shard?
Yes, Shard. Those are the people who actually went beyond cosplay. And it was like, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, that takes a lot of dedication and hard work.
I remember one of the cosplays that stuck out to me was they came as the Tornado Cyclone.
Yeah, that one. I was about to mention that one.
They had won the contest at the 2012 event as Mecha Sonic, so it was kind of amazing to see. I had heard stories that she was building this Cyclone thing because one of our staff members, Bishop, he was the 2013 first place winner as Metal Sonic, so he considers her like a rival for like a perfect cosplay. So he kept me informed of how the progress on the Cyclone suit and how worried he was. He's like, I'm so scared that, she might actually be the one to beat me for first place at the next event. And to see that Cyclone finally be realized rather than just see these concept sketches was pretty amazing.
Next time you see these cosplayers, tell them about us, because we really appreciate all forms of Sonic art. And to us, that form of 3D design, I mean, actualizing, I do a lot of drawing, but I also, I go to college, study a degree in Bachelor of Fine Arts, and you have to also do the 3D stuff, like the jewelry smithing and the ceramics. You have to basically do the whole workaround. And I can tell you, it's a different ball field, working with. I mean, I still have scars on my hand from using burn tools. It's slipping on, and it's like, it's really suffer for your art stuff, and getting to see that art 3D, getting to interact with people, that get to wear a piece of art, a piece of fan art is so cool. And we'd love to, next time you see these people, tell them about us, because we'd love to see it, and we'd love to see them talk about it and how to make it, because that's just as important, as the music, and it's just as important as the 2D art we see.
And I'm sure too they could probably add like how they did it to inspire users on the site as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, we definitely want to see it. I mean, we want to see all forms of it. The remixing, everything. And we really appreciate you guys, for bringing those people together. And I love that idea of competing. I mean, that's hilarious.
Competition's good.
Competition's good. I mean, that competition is just, it sounds hilarious. I can't wait to hear how they try to one-up each other next.
For this year's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they've met each other before, but I know that he considers her to be his rival because she puts together such good cosplays, and then she just tears them apart, and I guess she gives the pieces of the costume to kids for toys, and I just about cried when I heard that because they took that awesome Mechasonic cosplay that won first place, and they just tore it apart and gave it to a bunch of kids. And I'm like, oh!
But if you think about it, were they able to keep it in a room? I mean, what doesn't have enough space? So
yeah, that's a fair point.
Or keep it in a garage, even if they don't have a garage. So
someone could hold on to it.
Why someone would do it?
I'm just surprised they didn't decide to try and sell it, because I assume that costume, award winning, would probably give it a little bit of value, but they decided to just donate it as a toy to some kids. I'm like, oh, well.
In time too, those kids could really enjoy something like that too. It might help. It might inspire them to do something like that as well in the future.
Yeah, and not just there's this beautiful moment. I mean, you can give these kids to where they realize they don't just have to be a consumer; they can be a producer in our subculture. They can create. They can reciprocate what they've taken in from Sega. Reciprocate those good memories that they've had playing the Sega Genesis or playing the Dreamcast, and make it their own and make this art and give it to the fans. And that cycle, that feedback, that's what's developing us as a subculture. It's funny, the Million Sonic Twitter army, we were just talking about, there's a lot of potential and growth in that. And I just want to see more and more of it. And I want to see, all of these forms of art get respected. And I really believe you guys, I have faith keeping that platform, springboarding people onto that. I mean, it's an exciting time to be in any fan now.
I would actually ask to be part of, would you guys consider that be part of your driving message for Sonic Revolution? It's what you want, how you want Sonic Revolution to be viewed as the fans, just getting these people together, getting these cosplayers together, these people who just love Sonic together. Is this part of your driving message per se?
What would you say if you could sum it up? It might be hard to do because there's so much special things that come from it. If you had to sum it down in a credo or a maxim, what would you say is that driving force for you guys? What your core message, your core mission for the fandom? What would you say that is? I mean, what you hope to see, what you aspire to see from your convention. Anything new?
I would say that the main message that we go for is that you don't need to wait for someone else to make these things happen. If you have an idea and you have the motivation and you can get a team together, you can do it yourself. It might be a bit of a rough start because, there are all the logistic issues, of course, but we managed, I know the first year there were a lot of hurdles to overcome. I remember one time we weren't sure if we could bring out this band to perform or not, so that's when I asked, I actually called up my dad and asked for a favor. I'm like, could you pay for these guys' plane tickets? Please, please, please. It's very important to me. And he did. And so they were able to come out and perform, and that was awesome. But the overall idea is that you don't need to wait for Sega or any company really to hold these sorts of events. The fans themselves can hold them if they just get a team together and they put their mind to it.
Pretty much Shia LaBeouf, just do it. Don't let your dreams don't let your dreams be dreams.
Yeah, just do it. If they really want to make a convention, just like us, or at least a event, just start small. Just start with a small group gathering, plan. I use Facebook all the time, so Facebook is the biggest tool you will ever use in your life. As for the location, it could be anytime, anywhere, as long as if you don't have enough money to start, you could do it at a park or at an anime convention or a gaming convention. Just say, hey, we're going to have a group gathering at that place. Come and meet us there. Because I've seen and I've talked to a couple of people that they actually go to conventions for a photo group gathering. And I mean, why not? Why not do that there? And so start small, work your way up.
You'd be surprised what some people go for conventions for. I know PAX, there's always these group of people who always come in hockey jerseys. They're huge gamers and like and all that, but they apparently have like this group on like Facebook and all that where they just go to conventions dressed up in hockey jerseys so they can tell each other so they know who's who in it. It's one of those weird little things, but it's something like that, like you guys aim for, right? Just like be able to like get all these Sonic fans together, like in places like such as like PAX or like I'm trying to think of some of the other conventions other than like E3 and PAX.
I've talked to a couple of people in the past, and I asked them, hey, guys, where are you guys going? Oh, we're going to do a One Piece gathering outside the convention center or a Attack of Titan photo op. Those kind of gatherings, they do everything in just one place.
That's how things start out, correct?
You know, the conventions provide us with new ways to look at what we love and an opportunity to share a common folklore, folk art. You know, it's just beyond the original material. We've lived in a society, you know, for over 100 years where mass media is basically so centralized, where most of the stuff was written in Hollywood, most of the stuff was produced in Hollywood, and it was projected to us, it was transmitted to us. But now, in the age of social media, that transmission can become actual communication again. And we can correspond with each other, and we can be together, you know, on social media. We can do even more than that. What you guys have done is taken us from the digital realm of just squabbling on DeviantArt to actually meeting with each other in person and empathizing with each other as human beings rather than just, you know, screens and Skype calls and, you know, blips and bloops from a instant messenger. That's important. That's vital. Really getting to know people, really bringing together people, and not just having what we love transmitted to us by Sega, but also shared with each other, and where we can create and we can produce back and give back to each other, maybe even back to Sega. That feedback helps them. Look at Sonic Mania. Excited what you guys can do, and I'm proud to be part of it.